Hello, my name is Chris Elan, and in this video I'm going to introduce you to roulette cards. This video is not intended to go into any great amount of detail. That is going to come in coming videos over the next couple of days and weeks. This video is basically just to provide an introduction to the goals and the fundamental features of roulette cards. So one quick note, if you could keep your eye out for letters that are going to be in the bottom left-hand corner of some of the slides. If you can email all of the letters in the exact order that they are displayed to email@roulettedarts.com with a subject of promo number 1, then the first 5 people who do that will receive a $25 promo code that allows them to use the tool for free. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. So what is roulette cards? So number one, roulette cards is not a strategy in itself. Roulette cards is a strategy generation tool. It allows users to enter in the table limits, preferences, starting and ending balances, and then roulette cards takes over, executes hundreds of thousands of simulations, runs advanced algorithms to then find the most statistically successful strategies for that person. To put it another way, roulette cards answers the question, if I have X dollars and I want to make Y dollars, what is the best possible bet sequence that will give me the highest probability of success? That's it. All right, and then roulette cards applies that process over and over and over again. So if we start off with X dollars and we get the best possible bet sequence and then we're successful, now we have X dollars plus 1. All right, so what is now the best possible bet sequence for X dollars plus 1? And then we keep doing that over and over and over and over again until we reach our ultimate goal. And it is this collection of bet sequences that creates a roulette cards strategy. So what you end up with is, as you move through the game and you have more and more money, you then go ahead and get better and better strategies. So you're always following the optimal path, the optimal strategy from point A to point B. All right, so let's dive into a little bit of detail. Roulette cards has not just one type of bet, which many strategies do, which are usually red-black or any other kind of 50-50 type bet. Roulette cards actually uses 5 different bet types. So the first bet type is low-high. And so in the low-high, so before I dive into that, all of the statistics you're going to see here are all based on a US or American wheel with a 0 and a double 0. And so in the low-high, you're going to go ahead and put 1 unit on the 1 through 18 or the 19 through 36. Now, yes, 100% you could achieve the same results if you went ahead and did red, black, or even or odd. But there is a very specific reason why we have chosen low-high. And I think that'll be clear over time. And if not in this video, in the next video, we'll go into why we chose low-high. The second type of bet is the 2 dozen. And in this bet, you go ahead and put 1 unit on one of the first dozen, second dozen, or third dozen values, and you put the second one on a non-overlapping segment. So in this particular case, you're going to cover 24 numbers, which will be 64% chance of winning on a 0-0-0 table. Third bet type is a low, high, and 1 dozen. And so in this particular case, you're going to put 3 units on a low, high, and you're going to put 2 units on one of the non-overlapping dozens. So this will, of course, has a cost of 5 units, which is more expensive than the previous 2, but you increase your chances of winning the spin, and this one gets us up to about 78.9%. The fourth type of bet is a 2 dozen, 2 square. And in this bet, you put 3 units on 2 of the dozens, and then 1 unit on 2 corner bets or square bets. This will give us a win percent of 84.2%. And then our final one, which is our most expensive, 17 units, we go ahead and put 9 units on our low-high, 6 units on one of our non-overlapping dozens, and then 2 units on one of the remaining square bets. So this gives us a a winning percent chance for a spin to be 89.5%. So Roulette Cards uses any one of these 5 bets in combination to achieve the best results. All right, so let's take a look at how we go ahead and define table limits. All right, so table limits basically describe the rules of the table. Okay, so on this particular screen, we have the ability to enter in a descriptive name and a actual description of the limit. That's primarily for the user, so when they see it, they know what it's all about. And then from there, you can go ahead and define the number of zeros, and that value can either be 1 0 for a European table, 2 zeros for American, or we also have the ability for 3 zeros, which is in some Vegas casinos they call it, I think it's sands or something like that. So that does exist as well. You then go ahead and provide your minimum bet. So this is the minimum bet that's allowed on the table. So that's a minimum bet that's going to be on the outside, and that's a minimum bet that's going to be allowed for total on the inside. Min chip denomination. I've mainly seen this to be an issue in like the not the high roller, but the high limit rooms. So for example, at Caesars, if you go into their roulette room, the minimum chip denomination is 25. So mainly you're going to see this at the high limits tables, but it definitely is important to be able to identify what the minimum chip denomination is. Okay, so then the max high-low bet. So this is the maximum amount that the table will allow for a high-low, 1 through 18 or 19 through 36. Our max dozen, same thing. What is the maximum amount that you can place on a dozen bet? And then the max square bet, this is usually the max inside, but some tables, again, in your high-limit rooms, this can be progressive, and this number can be different than just one solid value. So something to be aware of. So it is really important to get these numbers right, because this is the bounds in which you'll be playing in. And if you get this wrong, there's a saying in computer science, garbage in, garbage out. So this is something that you don't want to just say, well, I think it's this. This is something you want to nail, like 100%, like exactly know what these numbers are. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at how you set your bet preferences. So initially, when you set it up, it's the same thing where you can go ahead and give it a name and a description. Again, mainly for the user. You can then also set the minimum win percent. So this is the minimum win percent of the bet sequence. So that means that bet sequence cannot go below this win percent. Period. And then below that is a grid of your various bets. So in Roulette Cards, we have the ability to have bet sequences up to 7 bets. So you can have a bet sequence of 1, you can have a bet sequence of 5, and you can have it all the way up to 7. And the bet preferences are basically saying this is what I am willing to accept at this particular point in my bet sequence for this particular bet sequence size. So if you want to dive into any particular one of these, all you have to do is just click one of the pills, one of the little blue boxes. At the time when you first start off, there'll be white boxes, and then that will take you to a little pop-up modal that will allow you to actually say, hey, this is what I want. So in the upper right-hand corner, you're going to see those 2 white dots followed by a blue dot followed by 2 more white dots. That is actually an indicator to tell you where you are. So this is basically saying that we are on the 4th bet of a 5-bet sequence. Okay, and so then on the left-hand side, you're going to see a bunch of options where you can say, all right, for a low-high, number 1, I allow a low-high bet here, or not. You can basically turn that off, and you can see that in the allow bet toggle. And then below that, you can go ahead and say, how many units of profit do you want? Okay, so in this particular example, we are saying the 3rd bet in a 5-bet sequence, we allow low-high, and also we are okay with a profit, a unit of profit of 1, 2, 3, or 0, or even -1. And so that -1 is kind of interesting. That basically means that even if you win the bet sequence, you could still lose money. Now, I know this is a little bit different than what you maybe have seen in other strategies, for example, martingale or Fibonacci. And in roulette cards, we do allow for a negative, a negative unit of profit, even if you win. But of course, you have total control of that. And then if you want to go ahead and modify the behavior for different bets, you just go ahead and click on, for example, 2 dozen or low high and a dozen and so on and so forth. And you can go ahead and specify what your unit of profit is for this point in the bet sequence for this particular bet type. So you have total control over what kind or total control over what your personal preferences are, what you're comfortable with. And that's the whole point, is if you're not going to actually use the strategy that's generated, then it's totally pointless. So this is very important to be able to fill this out properly and to really know what you're comfortable with, what your comfort zone is, what your risk level is. Okay, now once we've done that, we then go to the generate strategies request. And at this point, we basically specify what our table limits are, what our bet preferences are, and then we go ahead and specify what our starting and goal balances are. So in this particular case, we're at a $15 minimum table. We're using the standard bet preferences that I've set up. And again, you can set up your own. And we're just trying to get from $500 to $600. All right. So the values that really matter is the starting and goal balances. The indicator down below with profit percent and then goal profit. Those are mainly just as helper fields. But in the end, Roulette Cards is just going after starting and goal balances. Okay. All right. Now, once we actually click generate, we will be taken to the generation status screen. And so there are literally tens of thousands of there's actually even billions of possible permutations. So some of this can take a little bit of time. So by no means is this something that you're going to click a button and it's just going to come back right away. So you be prepared. So the first step is building sequences, and this is basically going through every possible permutation based on the input provided, and then finding everything that's available. And then we go ahead and then use all of those and find the very best, and then we try to find a way to chain those together, and that's the building strategies portion. And then once we've built all of the strategies, then we go ahead and run over 100,000 simulations on every single strategy that gets generated. And the reason for that is, by no means do we think that you're actually going to play 100,000 strategies. The idea behind it is to give you the data so you know exactly what your odds are of success. What does this look like? How many spins am I going to go through? So on and so forth. So you can make an educated decision of whether or not you actually want to play that strategy. And so once this is complete, before I get into that, it is possible that this could take minutes, this could take hours, and in the extreme cases, so, when you're dealing with, $10,000, $20,000, this could take a day or more. So this is not something that you want to, like, hey, I want an answer now. This is something you want to plan ahead for. And the output of this is a series of strategy cards. Now, Roulette Cards is designed around the idea that you cannot have a computer at an actual roulette table. So every single strategy can be printed on, it is designed to be printed on 3x5 index cards. The index cards basically have two parts to them. We have the summary cards, which I'm not showing in this video, and then we have the individual strategy cards. And each strategy card is broken up into two parts. The first part is the front of the card, which is the general statistics of the bet sequence. And that's what we're seeing here. And so here we have the title, which tells us that I'm at the 15th minimum table and tells me I'm on the 5th bet of a 6-bet strategy. I'm sorry, I'm in the 5th bet sequence of a 6-bet sequence strategy. From here we can see that our current balance at this point in the strategy is 580, and we're trying to get to 595. So that's all this card is about. I want to get from 580 to 595. Then we have our units of value, right? So you saw in the previous section where we talked about how much profit per unit. Well, in this case, our unit is $10. And then we have our average sequence profit. All right, so you could have sequences that have a positive profit at some point and a negative point, or maybe even zero. When you average up all of those profits for this bet sequence, this is the average bet sequence profit. The strategy win percent, this tells us what our odds of success are to actually reach our ultimate goal. So if we're on the fifth bet sequence of a 6-bet sequence strategy, at this point we have a 94.7% chance of being successful with the overall strategy. Our sequence win percent tells us what are the odds of success for this particular bet sequence. So we're not trying to reach a goal, it's just we have a 97.8% chance of not losing. And that's all that means. And then our sequence goal win percent, that tells us what are our odds of actually going from $580 to $595. So just this card to meet this goal. And then finally, our sequence resend percent, since we do allow for negative numbers, it is possible that you could still win this bet sequence, but you'll still lose money, which means you have to go from the 5th bet sequence back down to the 4th bet sequence. And so in this particular case, that would be a 4.3% chance. Now on the other side of our card is the actual instructions of how to play this bet sequence. And again, on the title, we basically have, we're trying to just make $15. The number of spins tells us, all right, it's between 1 and 27 spins to actually get a success. On average, though, it's 3. So in about 3 spins, you'll go ahead and achieve the $15 profit. And so, taking a look at this, you can kind of see on the left-hand side, we have the actual index of the bet. So the first bet is for a profit of $10, and we're going to do $30 on low high and $20 on one of the non-overlapping dozens. So this is a low high 1 dozen bet. Okay. If we are unsuccessful in that bet, then we go ahead to the second one, which is just a flat $50 bet on low high for a profit of 0, which means we make no money, we just break even. And then if we go ahead and lose that, then we go to the next one, which is $100 on low high, again 0 profit. And then finally, the 4th bet in our sequence, we go ahead and put $190 on 2 separate dozen bets. So this would be a 2 dozen bet. Okay? And even if we win this, we still lose $10 overall. So if we get to the 4th point, that means we're going to rescind and we're going to go back to the 4th bet sequence and not stay where we're at. Okay? All right. So thank you very much. Again, this is just a brief introduction to roulette cards. Again, I hope that you're paying attention to the numbers in the lower left-hand corner. And again, the first 5 people to send me their the letters that were in the lower left-hand corner in the appropriate order will go ahead and receive a promo code to use roulette cards for free. Any questions, comments, concerns, go ahead and email those to email@roulettecards.com. And thank you for your time. Thank you.